get this centered. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Easthampton Conservation Commission will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information in the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and/or parties with a right and/or requirement to attend this meeting can be found below. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on the City of Easthampton website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. Should an interruption occur in which the meeting ends abruptly, the meeting will not be restarted and all agenda items will be automatically continued to the next scheduled meeting. I will now call to order the January 25th, 2021 meeting of the Easthampton Conservation Commission. Are there any public concerns or non-agenda items?
I've had a request from Jeff Bagg to take the general business item 8A or 8B, I think it is, out of order because he has to leave at 7 p.m.
Okay.
Or has another meeting at 7, so maybe a little earlier than that even.
So you said 8B.
Yeah, the letter of permission.
Okay, is there a motion to take agenda item 8B out of order?
Motion to take agenda item 8B out of order.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, roll call vote. August?
Aye.
Busa?
Aye.
Lathrop?
Aye.
Ryan?
Aye.
Whittemore?
Aye.
Motion carries. Agenda item 8B, letter of permission.
Is that to hand it over? Is it okay?
Your turn, Jeff.
Thank you. Thank you for taking the item out of order. I appreciate that. I have to go to the Rail Trail Committee meeting at 7. I think in your packet or at some point, Cassie transmitted a draft letter of permission. It's associated with a grant that we're hoping to submit on February 1st for some trail improvements in the Broad Brook Forest area, which is, so I've been doing some research, but it's like the Burokowski parcel off of Hendrick Street. And in doing in looking at the application materials, one of the requirements is sort of a letter of permission from owners. And I think in this case, kind of just belts and suspenders, really wanted to ask the Conservation Commission for this letter to authorize, some of the, and I can explain some of the project, but to authorize us to submit the application on 2 of the properties are under the control and management of the Conservation Commission, and 1 of the parcels is under the management and control of the Board of Public Works. So that's the ultimate goal. I could understand that we could talk about the contents of the letter. I don't need the letter immediately tonight, but sometime this week. So ultimately the goal would be to have, the commission, potentially authorize the chair to sign the letter. And if there are any amendments, I think that's totally fine. So that's kind of the total overview, and I'm happy to answer any questions or show maps or talk about the project or whatever you'd be interested in.
Yeah, can you give an overview of the scope of work that this would be in support of, essentially?
Yep, thank you. So it's really two parts, and the first part is what we would describe it as resource delineation and permitting. Those are 2 kind of big parts, so you could almost call it 3 parts. So resource delineation, permitting, and then some construction activity. And the construction activity is actually pretty limited to tree removal. This was an area that was, the phraseology that we're using in the grant so far is that the area, portions of the area were decimated by the microburst in 2014. And I've gone out to the site now twice, and one of the key trails used to go from the DPW water department facility on Hendrick Street and kind of traverse the back and enter the Burkowski parcel. And that trail has just been unpassable since 2014. And the number of large trees that have fallen on the trail as part of the microbursts, it's just a pretty significant undertaking to remove the trees, at least from the trail portion. And I think this project has been contemplated for many years. And, I think with some help and support from other people, I think everyone's realized that permitting is a really important part of the project. So, and it's natural heritage area, and there are some other wetland resource areas that would all have to be delineated first. And so it all kind of goes back to this grant is going to ask Mass Trails for the funding for the delineation, the permitting from a qualified consulting firm, and then the trees would potentially be removed. So that's a very brief summary of that part of it, and I'm happy to go into more detail. I will say there's been a great, really committed group of volunteers, and I don't know if specifically Hans Dahlhaus has come to the commission. I know that he's been in communication with Cassie. He has done a tremendous amount of legwork, and we have a proposal from whether or not we end up using this consultant. We do have a proposal from GZA, and they've been to the site, and they've kind of outlined what we might expect for evaluations, assessments, and then permitting at natural heritage, along with permitting from this board. Probably the expectation is a notice of intent for some of the work. So what I see as the benefit is to hire a consultant to do all that baseline delineations, and then the permitting. It's a huge lift. That's a significant portion of the money that we're asking for from Mass Trails. But we're hopeful that once the areas are delineated, especially the areas where the trail is traversing, we will then have all the permissions that we need to actually conduct the work. And that seems like that could have been the holdup for many years, and was prevented the project from taking place.
What's the timeline you're thinking about?
We're trying to establish a loose timeline. It is going to be a challenge because I don't know. I personally don't know what the constraints are for doing the assessments, the habitat assessments. We should hear back from Mass Trails in June, and we would be prepared to have the consultant engaged to do the assessments in the summer and fall. And then the construction, I'm calling it construction. It is really tree removal and restoration of the trails, but we'll call it construction. Would be likely next spring or summer. And that, I think that could depend on conditions that come out of natural heritage as well. So nothing would happen immediately, and the letter of support is only to make the application and to have Mass Trails understand that the Conservation Commission knows that we're making this application.
Mm-hmm. Cassie, did Jeff indicate? I don't seem to be finding that in my inbox. Did I miss when you sent the draft letter, or is that available?
It was just part of I linked to like a folder that had all the Burkowski things in there. I can pull up the letter itself though if you guys want to see it now, or.
Yeah, I'd like to do that unless other folks have questions they want to ask of Jeff.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, and this is just a draft. I think at this stage, Jeff, I didn't make any additions or change anything from what you had sent me, so.
That's fine.
Okay.
Jeff, did you say the microburst was 2014 or 2015?
It was actually in 2014, so that would be a change to that letter.
I know this has come up before. Have we confirmed the questions that I know some of us had, at least, about which uses were permitted on those parcels? It seems in this letter, it states it as though it's clear, but I know we've had questions about that in the past among the commission members.
Yeah, I think and I can explain the but I think like we believe that the uses envisioned are are what was expected of the parcel when they were acquired. And there's a couple, it takes a second to unwind that, but I've done a fair amount of research, and the reality is that some of the language that we've found for when it was acquired refer to conservation restrictions that we don't think there are actually conservation restrictions. We cannot find them. And I was kind of nervous about this because I understood that question had come up. And Dan, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I had a conversation with Dan, and we reviewed the materials that he had and the materials that I had. And one of the things that we were doing early on is that, the acquisitions were the one parcel, the root parcel, Catherine Root was acquired in like 1974, and it was gifted or it was purchased. There's no real documentation except it was granted to the Conservation Commission. Then in 1999 and 2000, the Burokowski parcel was acquired. And then somewhere along the way, the final piece was the Rocky parcel. So there's 3 and they total about 140 acres. We went through other acquisitions for the same purpose. So aquifer protection was the main purpose for the protection. And we found another parcel that the city acquired in 2005. So a little bit after all of these, and the conservation restrictions for that clearly allowed for mountain biking and passive recreation and trails and hiking. So we were piecing it together that way, but then Cassie had a file, which I was finally able to review today. That was only my delay that I finally got to review today. And there's a document in there that outlines a draft management plan for the property that was prepared for the Conservation Commission in 2000. And to me, I ultimately and I think Cassie has that. I don't know, Cassie, would you be able to share that? So we were really kind of retracing history because we've lost a lot of the institutional knowledge in Easthampton currently. And this document to me explains that with clear foresight and thinking, the Conservation Commission acquired these, understood that there were trails and existing trails and trails to be enhanced with markings and improvements. This management plan, to me, I was so happy to find it today. And to me, it's really makes it much clearer that this was the vision for the acreage out there. So I think with this document, so the first few pages, Cassie, if you'll go through the first few pages, because they're a little bit more of an informal summary. I think it's on like page 4, where and I'm not trying to skim over any of this, but it becomes a more formalized looking document on the next page, the next set of pages here. So here was, a very careful description of the grant program that was used to purchase the properties, and then the parties involved. And I'm not trying to skirt any of this. I'm not suggesting that the letter has to get signed tonight, but I want to keep going to the next page there. Here's where the land use and purpose and management goals were identified. And then, I think it's really clear that hunting as a historic use, and I'm not suggesting this is what I'm going for, but like it even says snowmobiles on designated paths, and then mountain biking on designated paths, hiking, birding. It talks about the need for the bridge. That's section 5.1, the bridge that was constructed with the proper permissions in about 2005, I believe, is noted. It talks about various options for parking, including at the DPW water treatment facility. And then in this trail here, thank you for the trail section. It mentions the trail from the water treatment plant to the Burokowski parcel. It was developed and then it was kind of demolished by the storm. It talks about an education center, and it also talks about trail markings and a trail map. And so if all goes well with our grant request this time, we're also trying to include trail markings and a map. That's the way that I would explain this currently, and I would give the commission some time to review that. It just came up today, so.
I would just add to that, you know, going back to my knowledge of the area, which is from, you know, I've been on the board since 2007 and probably started becoming aware of it in 2008, was that, and this is from Stuart Beckley, who was involved in the procurement of at least the Burokowski parcel, is that the root parcel is owned outright by the Conservation Commission, and the Burokowski parcel was purchased with the intent of, you know, doing, you know, maintaining those trail uses and everything like that. And, you know, having looked over the language with Jeff that references conservation restrictions, it almost seems to, like, you know, there's like a one-page document that talks about conservation restrictions at the end. And to me, it almost refers to that same page and not to something else. So, to me, it kind of seems pretty clear that having the trails there and everything was all part of the original intent. And so for us, Jeff, you are asking about the root parcel and the Burokowski parcel, correct? And then the rocky parcel is DPW's
Correct.
deal. Yep.
That's correct.
And so, like, I feel pretty comfortable with the letter. Maybe I might have some wording suggestions, but, you know, like, in principle, it seems to make sense to me.
Jeff, do you know what the source of the Mass GIS data attributes are? Because the two Hendrick Street Wellfield parcels are not, at least according to the Mass GIS data, they say no public access. Do you know why that is? And how that, if that's accurate, how that would work with what you're trying to achieve here?
No, so will you tell me again what you're seeing? So if you're accessing Mass GIS, the all over layers, is that what you're saying?
So if you're in the open space data layer,
Yeah.
under public access for those two parcels that are described as the Hendrick Street Wellfield, it says no, but I don't know the source of that information.
Yeah.
I guess I'm just wondering, like, how that works with this master planning document that you guys discovered.
Yeah, that's a good question, Melissa, and I appreciate you flagging it. I don't think it creates any questions in my mind for this step where we're at in the application, but if you were a reviewer at the state of our application, then I'd be worried that's a question that I would need to resolve or work on a little bit. The way I have it kind of outlined is, you know, the Burokowski, the document that Dan mentioned, it's basically like the filing at the Registry of Deeds. You know, it's the document that you would find at the registry, and it says that it is under the control and maintenance of the City of Easthampton Conservation Commission for the promotion and development of natural resources and for the protection of the watershed resources of the City of Easthampton. And that's the one where initially, you know, I went back and I was able to find later acquisitions where the CR acknowledges the passive recreation as allowed, even though we're protecting it for aquifer purposes. But I have an inquiry in, so it's like a hodgepodge. and I apologize, I understand I'm not being as clear as I probably could be. But for the Rocky parcel, so I have the other set of deed information for the Rocky parcel, which is the DPW. And, you know, this is the one that's flagged that it's under the control of the Department of Public Works, and that there was a grant agreement with the state. And I have inquiries in with the state, but and there's people who are responding to me, but they haven't uncovered the grant agreement. So I'm going off of that documentation that's in the packet, and there are some newspaper clippings, which it sounds funny to say that that's what's in that file. And it's all talking about, and I can compile it more if the commission's really, you know, has additional questions. I'm happy to dig in a little harder and show that all the conversations during the acquisition was to protect it and to allow the passive recreation to occur. So the problem is putting your finger on that one document that just explains it all. Like that, we don't currently have that.
Right, and the Rocky parcel, same data attribute table
Yeah.
also has that as not being public access. So I guess the concern is just that the city goes too far down a path that someone pulls the rug out under. That doesn't make any sense. They can't go further.
Yeah. You know, I don't know if Stuart would ever watch one of these meetings, but Stuart was doing amazing things. I find stuff and I can't believe the number of things that were happening all at once. This must feel just like today. But the self-help program is what many of the properties were acquired with. And so this other document, which must have been superseded. This is another document about the Burkowski parcel. And this one says for conservation and passive recreation purposes. And then I think there's a document that's filed at the registry after this one. So I think it got superseded. The acreage is different. So something must have changed. But what I would like to try to do is make the commission feel comfortable giving the permission for the application to go forward, because that's happening this week. And then continue to pursue kind of these pieces of the puzzle. If I had access to the self-help grant applications, I think to me it would become very clear what was being requested. And the file that Cassie had we would need to take some time to kind of put it together so that it was, you could understand like what was happening in terms of a timeline. You know, there was in-depth conversations with property owners and understanding of the trail network that existed. And to me, there was no expectation that those uses would not be able to continue.
Thank you. Cassie, do you want to pull the letter up again? Do other folks have any questions or comments they want to offer to Jeff at this time? If he needs the letter this week, then we should probably.
Was that shared with us? The letter?
Yeah, I sent it in the ongoing update document and in the email that I sent to just the main notification of the letter of the of the meeting. I hyperlinked the Burkowski parcel that just gives you all the documents that I have on it right now, and it should be it's just called Mass Trails Conservation Letter, I think is the title of it, but I can email it directly now if you guys want.
I don't think I have any questions about the application. My only concern would be snowmobiling, bike trails, and everything that goes with that at a later time, I guess. When we're talking about passive conservation and what entails. I mean, that's a whole nother story when you're talking about mountain biking and snowmobiling, liability, trail maintenance. But
Cassie, I can't get the hyperlink to work. That doesn't seem to work.
Oh, sorry about that.
Yeah.
Here, I'll email to everyone now.
looks good to me, though.
Yeah, I have no problems with the letter.
Yeah, my only question is, does it make sense to, would it normally be the chair signing alone, or can we say that the chair is signing on behalf of the commission, you know?
Yeah, I think the format, like that part of it is, I'm fine if the whole commission wants to sign it, if that's feasible, or signing on. Yeah, I kind of just took a stab at providing something to discuss.
I think Dan was saying change the phrasing so that it's not just, so that it's clear, it's a broader endorsement that it's not just the chair, it's not just the role of the chair, it's the chair on behalf of the entire board.
Right. And then I think we should also add a sentence just about that, you know, there's permitting to do, and like, you know, just because we're signing this doesn't necessarily mean
We're
not gonna
approving
give
any
a hard time about
future.
permitting. Yep. We're not going to give ourselves a hard time about permitting on our own parcel.
No, that makes sense to me, though. I think
Yeah.
that would be totally fine.
We're going to
Okay.
hold ourselves to the same standards. Everyone
Right.
else has to.
I have like a slightly unrelated question. If you all are reading, and that is, I think the bridge got damaged within the last year or so. It looked like a tree came down and like broke one of the rails or something like that, handrails. And I guess since that bridge is wooden, I think it's made out of like telephone poles, and it's like around 16 years old. Does it warrant like taking a closer look at that? Or like, do you not even want to go there just yet?
That seems like a separate maintenance issue as opposed to
Yep.
trail improvements. I think you have a good point.
Yeah, I would.
In the,
I think we walked it. My family and I walked it over the weekend, and I brought him into the area that was crushed by the trees. Everyone's like, "What are we doing here?" It's only impassable, but there's the bridge at the entrance, I think is what you're talking about, Dan, the trailhead. And I think what I would just to throw out there is if for some reason we're not awarded this grant, which is always in the back of my mind, then I think we should revisit that bridge specifically and figure out. I think that's I think we should figure that out. If we do get the grant, which is my optimism, then I think we should be able to at least fix that piece while we're doing the rest of the improvements. But there's a bigger question that you're touching on, is like the general management of the parcels in general that are under the control of the commission. And I think that is a really important discussion that should be happening. And I'm just really amazed. If you do have a minute to look at that management plan, I mean, that is something that should be a goal, like in the coming years, for all the parcels that are under the commission's control. And I think it'd be great. And I think we're going to find a lot. So there's a lot of probably deferred maintenance out there.
Yep.
Jeff, do you think there's the opportunity to utilize, technology to the commission's and the city's advantage in terms of the inventory of open space parcels, protected and recreational open space parcels? And I mean, I'm not aware of any real master plans for any of them. Do you know, is there any of that kind of sitting on a shelf in a binder that gets overlooked because we just don't know it exists?
I do not think there is an existing plan that exists. Although there are probably, and this is kind of an example of, there might be bits and pieces scattered all around that, it's coming through in the open space and recreation plan, which is the other item that I do want to touch on real quick. But before 7, I'm totally fine for time right now. But I think understanding the city's open space parcels and their status, and then where there would be future improvements or changes. The big thing that's coming out pretty clearly in the survey is parking, like, so an access to them and signs and then maps for each of the properties. And we have a wonderful, great relationship with Pascomic, but even their parcels are better mapped, they're better signed. And we, we kind of like would want to try to catch up with them on the city's parcels. And so this is, I'm kind of on a little sidebar, if you don't mind, but part of what I am doing I'm working on my budget for the planning department, and this will be the second year in a row where I've put in a plug to make the conservation agent position full-time, because I think we're at a stage now and over the next several years that having a full-time position would allow the position to do its work with the commission, directly with permitting and responding to applicants, but also do some of this more proactive work that I think is becoming clear that we kind of need. And then in addition to doing some like additional sustainability work and looking for green communities funding and things like that. So I've been working hard on that, and I think we're close to potentially trying, even though it's a very difficult time to be talking about expanding a department. If the state continues to push out money in the form of grants and for projects, like we currently can't take on much more without more people. And every grant, it sounds great, but every grant comes with a lot of time and effort from people. So that was a total sidebar, and I'm sorry. Do we want to get back to the letter? I'm sorry if I drifted over there for a minute.
No, I think it's a worthy topic of conversation. So I'm glad you're continuing to pursue that.
I could probably spend an hour listing off different things that we've wanted to do open space wise and started doing, like mapping. We started maybe doing that. Peter Cleary probably has it on his phone somewhere, wherever Peter Cleary is now. And the
No one else
Echodale
knows who Peter Cleary is. Maybe Jay.
the Echodale West,
I
the
do.
Echodale East stuff.
Yep.
And the community gardens is technically a subcommittee of our board, but I have no idea what they're doing now. And all kinds of stuff.
We did sign on. With permission of the mayor, I signed us on to another Mass Trails grant that the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission is applying for, which is a regional mapping program for trails. It's a regional trail mapping program. So if PPPC is awarded that, then we would have a conversation about sort of me and Cassie as paid staff providing time. That's kind of our match, is to provide staff time. And what we would hopefully get is six of our trails mapped. And this is where I drift off in technology lingo, but basically they would be converted into an electronic map, like something that there would be a trails app. And so Easthampton would be participating in a couple of towns in the region to have 6 of our trails mapped and accessible via, I forget what the app name is called. But we did sign on for something like that. And so, as much as it may not always seem like that, I'm really trying to nudge us forward to take some of these steps towards open space conservation and kind of sustainability. So it's something I'm really serious about. I know we have a lot of construction projects going on, but as soon as those stop, we're ready to kind of queue up some other stuff.
So, okay. So in terms of getting back to the letter, if we want to wrap this up tonight, Dan, do you have revisions you want to see? You want to suggest? How can we approach this?
Just those two concepts. I could try to put in like a little permit sentence someplace, but I don't know if I'm going to have an awful lot of time over the next couple of days.
Cassie, did you have an understanding of it's that in that first line would be amended to make it the chair on behalf of the whole commission, and then That I don't know where you would want to insert the clarity on permitting, but obviously, somewhere in that last paragraph, it starts with the funding. You know, I think in there would, it's where I try to acknowledge some of the scope of the project does involve that, but if we want to make it clear, I'm more than happy to, I think any changes that you guys would make would be fine.
One thing I could do is just kind of try to go over this draft. I'll insert like the commission letterhead that I usually use for our letters. Like when we do enforcement order, like cease and desist letter, things in that. We have a letterhead, so I can put that in there, and I can work on just that kind of the wording so that it is a little more clear about the permitting, and then change it at the top. And then I can send everyone a draft, hopefully just through email. And you guys can, if you have anything to add, let me know. And then by the end of the week, maybe, like, I don't know if that's too much time, Jeff, but maybe you guys can vote on now, yes, you want to approve me issuing this letter. And then I'll get it to Jeff by the end of the week after you guys, hopefully I can get it to you tomorrow, and you can just take a look at it over the week. And then if anyone has any changes, I'll incorporate them. But that was kind of my plan.
That works for me. Others?
That
Do
makes sense.
you want a motion to issue the letter of support?
To, as further revised per this discussion?
Sure.
Sure.
So I'll make a motion to issue a letter of support for the Mass Trails grants as revised for discussion.
Second.
All those in favor, roll call vote. August?
Aye.
Buttrick?
Aye.
Busa?
Aye.
Ryan?
Aye.
Whittemore?
I,
Motion carries. Thank you. So we'll get that wrapped up for you, Jeff. It's only
Thank you.
Monday.
It's only Monday.
Monday.
That's
It
good.
shouldn't take
I
me long.
appreciate it. Yeah, thank you.
Did you also, since you're here, I don't know if you still have time, talk about the open space draft? That was another general business item that I don't know if there's anything you wanted to add about it, or I can review it when we get there.
If you don't mind, Melissa, I mean, I think I've also asked the commission to write a letter of support for the open space and recreation plan update that is nearly complete. I'm not sure if you got it. I did try to provide like a transmittal, like a cover letter, and there was a link in there where you could click into the draft plan. You know, we've done a lot of public outreach. We've had one virtual community meeting, and we did the community survey. And although it doesn't seem like a lot, we got over 600 responses to the survey, which is actually a lot. That's a good survey response, and we've got a lot of data that has been digested and then put into the form of this plan and the narrative, and it lays out, you know, action items for the next 7 years. And it's not required, but I'm seeking the letter from the Conservation Commission and a couple other committees who I would anticipate will be involved moving forward. So the cover letter that I just provided a draft cover letter, and I don't need this tonight. So there's no, I mean, I think by your February meeting, if you were comfortable having reviewed the plan and signing the letter, I think that would fit well within our timeline. But the cover letter just kind of describes something that I think is important for people to realize, that over the past couple of years, we've been trying to take on these bigger community plans. So we have our open space plan. We have a housing production plan. We've done an arts visioning exercise, you know, and that was a comprehensive exercise about arts and culture in Easthampton. And then we did the downtown strategic plan. So with a couple other pieces, you know, we have done a lot of our planning work that would set us up to kind of pull it together as an updated master plan. So it's kind of a vision I've had to try to do it this way rather than try to pay a consultant a huge amount of money and do it all at once. We've been chipping away at it. But the letter, I tried to just offer a draft letter, which would acknowledge that, we have these important features in Easthampton, and we see maintenance and management as really important, as well as expanding the facilities. So, I referenced the CPA funds, and then maintenance, as well as promote it through the creation of maps and additional signage. Those are a few of the things that we think would be very actionable in the next couple of years. So that's kind of the nature of that letter. So I don't think I'm happy to answer other questions about the plan itself, but if the commission's willing to kind of sign off on that letter, maybe in their February meeting, your first February meeting, that would be ideal.
Yeah, I the link that I was hoping, I don't know if it worked now that I realized that if the Barakowski one didn't work, but I tried to link to the folder that had all the pieces. It has this letter that, this transmittal that Jeff sent, and it has each part of the draft like incrementally, but then also you can, one of them is just it in its entirety. Were people able to access that, or you might not even have looked yet, which is fine, but I realized I should check to make sure.
I haven't tried to access it yet.
It's okay. It's a lot. So that's why it was like, if we could just, we don't need to, I didn't think it was necessary to vote on this letter or anything yet. I more wanted to just put it on everyone's radar so that then we could have a more, everyone would have a chance to look at it before, or to make a vote at the February 8th meeting, whether or not to issue a letter that would be similar to this. I'm looking, and I can make another draft of this as well, if you guys want it to be any changes to that.
Okay, so I think, yeah, I guess maybe we can leave it as Cassie, if we can individually provide feedback to you a week in advance of our February 8th meeting, plus or minus, and that would allow you a little bit of time to take a look at everything and see if there are any consistent themes. And maybe, so rather than trying to parse through everything individually, we can maybe try to take an overarching discussion approach.
That sounds good. If that's okay with everyone else, that would definitely work with me.
Melissa, you're referring to the feedback on the plan as a whole, right? Not just this.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
But as well as the letter, just if there's any, I'm, generally okay with the boilerplate-ish approach, as long as we're, our thoughts on the overall plan have been shared.
Mm-hmm. Cassie, can you send us a hard deadline of when you want that feedback? That would be helpful for some of us who procrastinate these things.
That's no problem. I can definitely do that.
Thanks.
Perhaps a pop-up reminder.
Perhaps prop open my eyeballs and show me.
I was just going to add, I appreciate it. I want to thank Jay, because Jay's been sort of representing the Conservation Commission and the CPA on the steering committee, and we've had a bunch of meetings, and there have been a couple of drafts. So I don't want to underplay the importance of having you all take a peek at it. You've probably seen similar plans. So there's some data components, there's some information about properties, then there's kind of, and there you may, if you find something in there that you think is wrong or doesn't seem right, that would be really important to just flag. And if you can get that to Cassie, that'd be helpful. We're working closely with the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission on this as well, and they've been really good and responsive and working hard on this one. So then it's kind of the next two parts are kind of a summary of needs, which is how the consultant has synthesized the survey and the community feedback, and it kind of starts to set us up for goals. And then there's the action plan. So it will be a lot, but I think if you each look at it as intensely as you want, but just look for things that you catch your eye as maybe being incorrect or don't look right. That would be really important. And then if you think there's like a goal or a strategy missing or some kind of action item, you know, we still have time. We're massaging the end date here. So sometime in February, we're going to submit it back to the Department of Conservation Services, but it's not immediate. So I don't want to overplay the letter. The letter is just that to accompany the plan, but your review and just looking at the plan would be really helpful from, you know, all of your areas of expertise that'd be great. Hopefully you don't catch too many like grammatical errors or little things. So, you know, everyone reviews these kinds of documents differently. So whatever you are most interested, if you go to that section and make sure it looks right, that'd be
I
great.
feel like that's a jab at me, Jeff.
No, a lot, I mean, you might
Joking.
want to refrain from going through the whole thing for grammatical errors because it's been pretty cohesively written by one person, but and it wasn't me. So, but the big ticket items are the things to look out for.
Oh, Melissa knows how to review for.
I think he's saying what I know how to do is nitpick. So I will look at the bigger picture content.
And since it's really just this committee right now, there is a meeting on Wednesday. Not that anyone's looking for another meeting, but we're having our final community meeting on Wednesday at 5:30. You're welcome to join. It's going to be, you know, virtual meeting, but you are elevated above that, which is we want you to review the draft and provide anything that's glaringly not correct or you think should be added.
Okay, so are we all set on this topic for now? Folks, anything for Jeff while he's here and we have his attention?
I don't think I have anything.
I'll say a positive word about Cassie. She's been great. She's doing a lot. And I'm appreciative to have her. And I hope that the commission is too. It's been great. So I want to just thank Cassie for all her hard work.
I second that sentiment.
I as well.
All right. Well, thank you for letting me talk with you guys. And if anything comes up, please let Cassie know about the plan because we still have some time to add to it. So appreciate it.
Excellent. All right. Well,
Thanks,
good
Jeff.
luck with your next meeting, Jeff.
Thanks.
Good night.
All right. Thank you all
See you
very much.
later.
I appreciate it. All right. Thank you very much.
All right. So with that, let's resume agenda order. All right. We have no public hearings or meetings or requests for certificates of compliance. Are there any updates regarding enforcement actions, Cassie?
I had the site visit on January 13th with at 11 Button Road with Mr. Judd, and it was really good. Yep, he cleared everything that he was going to clear. I kind of like reiterated what was okay to move around. Last meeting we had talked about it's okay to replace some of the soil if it was still there and available to be replaced where it had been removed, but no new soil or material can be brought in. And he showed me what he was going to be using to potentially just kind of cover the area. We talked about the wood chippings that he had from the spot. And so just to kind of stabilize it in the interim. And then, we'll be back in the spring to kind of finalize what, if any, plantings will be done or what other work could be done to like kind of stabilize it. I remember at the end of the discussion, it was kind of like we were going to wait to finalize that just to see, like, get a better idea of what the situation was there in the spring. So otherwise, very communicative, and I don't necessarily, I haven't gotten a response yet from the only other item update that I have for any of the other enforcement items is for Autumn Properties. I didn't get a response from Dan Nishi yet. So about the last monitoring report, which was submitted in 2017. So still working on that one.
Are there any open space updates for Echodale or Lathrop?
No updates.
Do you have a plan in mind for when to kind of resume or reinvigorate the Echodale West? I know they tend to go pretty quiet during the winter.
Yeah, so now that basically I haven't gotten any, I don't have any indication that we're going to have anything for the meeting on the 8th either, besides these administrative things that we were talking about before.
Mm-hmm.
So I was hoping to kind of, where it left off was I need to research what is the bidding process, because we were trying to figure out who could we hire to do this tree management. I know that was feels like it was forever ago now. I guess it was a year. So I don't think that the plan necessarily will have changed much.
No.
I'm ready to keep going back into that if you guys are okay with sticking with the plan as it was, presented by land stewardship.
Right. I think at least my expectations are that we'll basically get everything back on track to proceed with completion of the plan, and hopefully the gap in between hasn't resulted in anything that requires the plan be modified, or if it has, that we then have an understanding of what that entails.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But yeah, if you could figure out if that would be the city's procurement officer.
Yep.
Who you should be talking to about bidding requirements. That would be helpful. I think one of the snafus, correct me if I'm wrong, was that we received quotes, but they weren't based on prevailing wage.
Yep.
Okay. So yeah, just making sure we have everything correctly presented for the next go round.
Are we still in the midst of somewhere in the middle of an active contract with land stewardship?
Good question. They haven't reached out to me since, and they kind of the person who we were working with that you guys were working with the first time doesn't work there anymore, but another person picked it up. So it's still, I would assume it's still on their radar. They didn't say that they were gonna stop. I guess I don't know what it is in a technical sense, what our relationship is with them, if it's an open contract or what.
I don't think the scope has been fully executed.
Mm-hmm.
So it's probably worth managing the trees is one aspect of things that we need to get back on track, but the other one is kind of reaching out and coordinating with land stewardship to see where they are with things.
I'm wondering too if our pricing is still valid, because I feel like it's been a good
Years.
2.5 or 3 years at this point, and
Mm-hmm.
presumably their rates have probably changed. So I don't know if that affects our ongoing contract or not.
It's a good point.
Okay, well, I'll include that when I reach out to land stewardship.
Thanks, Kathy. Okay.
Never in my life have I had a project that I had this hard a time remembering what was going on with, and I feel like one day of I feel like once you get your head into it, Cassie, one day of work would get this thing 100% on track. But it's just been such a.
I mean, that's a good point. I mean, I don't really even know why it stopped in the first place. I think I just got too overwhelmed with I don't even know what. So hopefully I definitely know how it works. Definitely just in the city, and I have all these other processes down. So maybe now's the time.
Yep. Yeah. And I mean, how, does this go back to Stewart, or did this start under Jess Allen? I mean, it's been two planners.
This started under Jess Allen right at the, no, it was before the previous agent.
It started
Jess
before.
Harwood,
the
Jess Harwood
previous-
was the kind of the point person on things.
Yeah,
And then when the commission got a part-time agent, those responsibilities shifted. The tree clearing has always been a bit of a stumbling block.
yep. Yeah, this will be like probably the 4th year in a row we've tried to do this in time for winter, and then we missed the winter window, but you know.
Moving on,
So-
please.
It doesn't have to be that way, but you know.
And yet here we are.
And yeah, here we are. Oh,
So
well.
compliance updates, Cassie.
Yeah. So the only big one is for the intersection, Lovefield Ferry Street intersection project. He was able to send me a bunch of reports
Great.
just today. So that hopefully, I'm still, the next step for me is to set up the site visit and get that in order and just kind of hold them to keep going with those, with the reporting and keep getting it done. I wanted to, the last meeting we were talking about the work specifically along the lower Mill Pond area where it like comes up against that. So I definitely wanted to at least check that out in person and then, just kind of check everything from there. So.
I have a question about the, it's item Q, the C. Rogers Penguins Unlimited 105 Pleasant Street.
Mm-hmm.
Did you, so
Yeah.
I got a heads up from someone who drove by that they noticed that the tree clearing up top had begun, that there was no file number sign posted. I went out, that was certainly the case. I texted Cassie and asked that she reach out to follow up on the pre-construction requirements. And we talked about, kind of giving 48 hours to get them together before we issue a cease and desist.
Yeah.
And what site was this?
The one across from Eastworks.
105 Pleasant Street, the billiards hall.
Okay,
Mhm.
I misheard. Thank you.
So yeah, I did reach out to Jeff Squire, immediately after you texted me, Melissa, and then he responded that like they were, what did he say exactly? He said that they were clearing downed trees and brush.
Oh.
I mean, yeah. So it's basically they. One of my guess is that they thought it was okay to do site work without that information, without this, without finishing the pre-construction requirements, stuff like that. So that's just my guess. But what I did is I, told them like, you got to meet all the I reiterated, you got to meet all the pre-construction requirements and record it on the deed and everything like that. And I also, emailed that to the property owner, who is Chris Rogers. So that should update everything. And additionally, what I learned just today is that they are, they're still going through the process with the ZBA, but there's likely to be changes to the plan as a result of how that's going with the ZBA. I mean, I can't say for certain, but that seemed to be how it looked like it was going. And so, I let them know if they're going to change the plan, they're going to need to come back to us if there, changes in disturbance or, major site plans, essentially. Any change in disturbance, either more or less. If it's more, they're going to have to get a new NOI. If it's less, they can try to go for an amended order of conditions. So they're aware of that now. So I don't know when that meeting is, the ZBA meeting. That'll be when they determine if there's any changes or not. And so, and just kind of like, unofficially, the way it's been described is that they're likely to reduce the size of the building so that they can increase the parking lot area. Because I guess that's the big sticking point with ZBA, is that there's not sufficient parking there or parking availability. And there was previously going to try to like be parking like somewhere else. And it's just like, I guess it didn't pan out but that's not officially what they're going with. So just kind of loosely might be something like that. But I'll keep you all posted. And we can go from there. But yeah, hopefully there shouldn't be any more work happening So if anyone sees anything, let me know and I can reach out to them again.
Thank you. Okay. That was it for updates, right?
The only other thing is that I did, and Jay was able to come with me on this. There was the pre-construction meeting for the dredging project.
Mm-hmm.
This is the other half of the project. We did it on the January 20th, and they've been submitting the daily reports. And the main thing was just, the main change was just that they were going to, what was it? There was like still more water, and they were thinking like, we're going to, work and start getting this sorted and just keep an eye on the turbidity. And as long as the turbidity doesn't go over 100, I want to say what the unit is,
NTUs.
Yeah, as long as it doesn't go over 100 NTB over the baseline measurements, which have been completed, then that should be fine. They haven't changed the scope of the work or the means or methods or anything yet. I guess they're just, the check dam isn't, or the dam that was going through to channel the water isn't established yet. And that's because there was even more water. So they're like, well, we need to work a little and then we're going to establish that when we can. So, my answer was, as long as you just need to stay underneath that threshold as it's described in the order. And that's fine. So far I haven't heard, none of the reports have indicated that they've gone over. So they're going after it.
Excellent. Okay.
Can I ask a question? I wasn't able to go to the site visit, but I was curious do we think that there were any impacts or anything of concern from the fact that the sandbags and the mats were just kind of hanging out, floating around for a month or two or however long it was in the interim?
Yeah, the mats were still there, and they were all kind of in the middle, like in the middle of the work area. So I can't think that it would be, that's an area that's going to be impacted anyways, which is like not ideal, but I don't know, Jay, do you think that that's correct how I'm saying that, or?
Yeah, they were kind of piled up on each other in the middle there. And I went back on Friday and he had removed all the oddball ones and all the ones he was using, and they were all organized, and he was parked out in the middle with a 60-foot excavator on them. So.
Okay.
And no evidence of scour or anything of concern where all the sandbags were sitting, that they knew that they might be kind of eating away at the material around them while they were sitting there?
I didn't really see it.
Okay.
Yeah, it was hard to tell. I would think that if that were the case, though, that would have been a problem for the project itself. So hopefully that would have come up, or it would have been more obvious if it was I don't know. That was kind of what I was looking out for, is if the work has changed, or the plan for the work. So I don't know if that makes sense, but I didn't notice anything that seemed crazy compared to when we were last there.
Right.
You good, Julie? Okay, thank you. All right. So moving on to, with no other project updates, moving on to general business, meeting minutes, January 11th, 2021. I sent Cassie one minor spelling correction for Borachowski.
Yep, and Deb caught a couple of other errors in there that I fixed. So no other major changes were requested.
Great. Is there a motion to approve the meeting minutes of January 11th, 2021 as revised?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All those in favor, roll call vote. August?
Aye.
Patrick?
Aye.
Busa?
Aye.
Ryan?
Aye.
Whittemore?
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, we've also already discussed item B, letter of permission. C, emergency certification utility leak.
Oh, boy.
So this is over, it's part of the CT River outfall. It goes along the Manhan River, the Manhan Rail Trail. And it's the leak itself is located at the rear of 111 East Street. And so basically what had happened is that there is a culvert there, and it's kind of like the culvert goes under and then the pipe is going over, and the culvert apparently had been blocked at some point for I don't know how long. But as a result, the water was scouring outside of it and undermining the pipe itself. And so when I got there, the pipe was, pretty much entirely exposed and had caused one of the joints to like displace. So by the time I did the site visit, they'd actually repaired the pipe. It was all internal work. They just cut a hole through the top of the pipe and went in and did some kind of a sealant, and then did a sealant along the outside of it. And then the plan was to, unclog the culvert, restabilize the ground around it, and put some netting down so to keep it all secure. That seemed to fit. So I issued an emergency certification for it, but it also seemed to fit in potentially as an exemption. But because of that area and the proximity of the water, I was like, I'll just go with emergency cert now so that there's a record of what's going on here so you can keep an eye on it. But it may be exempt under the WPA. So I don't know. Maybe it's a redundancy, but.
What kind of pipe was it?
It was a wastewater pipe.
Wastewater.
I don't think it was straight sewer. I think it was like treated water.
It carries treated wastewater to the outfall. Where was it relative to the rail trail footprint? Is it like off in undisturbed area, or is it on the slope of the? Is the slope there?
Yeah.
An embankment?
So it kind of goes like, houses, rail trail, and then there's down below closer, and the water would be like right here. So up a little bit is the where the pipe is, and it's kind of like there's a really, really old access road going over the pipe, but it's not like it's paved or anything. But it's like enough space. There's no major trees growing there, and like you could kind of see how maybe there's like tire tread mark things where like potentially cars could travel, like a utility car could travel through. So definitely more undisturbed than not. But I think historically it used to be an access road for that utility.
Mm-hmm. And this is a different location than the other emergency cert that the city got to make a repair to the outfall.
Yep.
Okay.
So this is way farther down, I'm pretty sure. I think it's farther away towards like Route 10/5, as opposed to the other one was closer to like Fort Hill Road. So.
How long ago was that other one?
That was, I want to say April, maybe March. It was like early days of the pandemic. It was kind of like strange.
That one. So this is like 100 years ago. There was the rail trail washout. That must have been 2011, 7, 8, somewhere in there. But this maybe this was just northeast of that, maybe. I don't know.
I think it sounds like it's by right by the old Pascomic conservation area access. There's that old road that kind of cuts down the slope and under the rail trail. I just noticed it recently.
Yeah, it's like a little
the first time and was surprised by it.
The leak itself was like a little bit farther down from that. So it wasn't right at that area, but yeah, really close to that area.
Okay.
But yeah, he was telling me, I went out there with Greg Nettleman, the DPW, and he was telling me like there's just a lot of these really old culverts that they put in that are not, they're probably not the right size necessarily, and they don't get checked as often as they probably need to be. And so it's like they're trying to just stay on top of these potential like undermining situations that occur. And hopefully one day it could all be like revamped and made beautiful, but that would be a whole thing in and of itself. So.
Looks like it's the third house from that side road.
Yeah, it was
Okay.
111 East Street
Mhm.
behind that one, yeah.
You're on mute, Melissa.
Oh, sorry. So are we good with that?
I don't know if you guys need to ratify it technically or not.
We should ratify it. So you're basically saying that the work is complete, the site's been stabilized.
Yep, I got a notification, I think either it was Friday or over this weekend, that it's already been done. So everything's been sorted out. I went out for a site visit before they went out to, I wasn't able to get out there before they fixed the leak itself, but I went after that in between when they restabilized everything. So that's all been completed, and it should be like stable, at least approaching, like it should be stable now.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So is there a motion to ratify the emergency certification as issued on January 20th, 2021?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Jay.
Second.
All those in favor, roll call vote. August?
Aye.
Patrick?
Aye.
Yusa?
Aye.
Ryan?
Aye.
Whittemore?
Aye.
Thank you.
Jay, you're
Motion
awesome.
carries. We all agree. We don't need a motion on that. Okay. Next, let's see. We already discussed the OSRP update. So Cassie, you're gonna kind of resend that, maybe send that as like its own thing. Help those of us who need a little extra help. And we'll aim to, I think it'd be good if folks aim to send their comments back individually, you know, a week before, at the beginning of February, so Cassie has some time to kind of synthesize the feedback. That's all I have. 168 Northampton Street, possible certificate of compliance. What's this?
Yeah, so I don't really,
Relic?
not really necessary that we talk about this anymore, because I think they might rescind it, their request for it. It's something to do with, there's like they might
Did they
be
actually
selling the
submit
property.
anything?
What that?
Oh, they did submit something.
No, they didn't.
Oh,
That
they
was like the
didn't.
draft. Yeah.
Oh,
So
so
they
there's
haven't
nothing to
submitted.
rescind if they didn't submit
Well, I
anything.
mean, like they might not even it might all just go away. I mean, they might not, because they talked to me and they were like, well, maybe we're not even going to go for this, so we're not sure.
Oh
But
my
it was
goodness.
like an interesting question for me to pose to you guys. It's just like, I wasn't able to find any files on it. It's old.
It's 1981, guys.
So I didn't know how to like go about figuring out if they completed the work or not, what it even was, what the work even was. So
Where?
Are they trying to sell the property, so they need to get this straightened out or something like that?
maybe, yeah, that's
Usually
what it started as, and now they're like, oh, maybe it's not a problem. So
Okay.
I mean, so I don't know if folks recall, but when that case law went through, basically saying it doesn't matter how old it is, you need a certificate of compliance or you don't have clear title. We got a couple of, I feel like we got a couple of pretty old ones that came through. Some from the 80s. So I think this is 168 Northampton Street, appears to be Abishon.
yep. So it's like, I guess my question just was, if we get one that's wicked old like this and I can't find any historical documents, like, is there a procedure that you guys take to figure out? Have you dealt with this before?
Don't know. Think on that.
Okay, yeah, there's not really any rush. I was just like, I had put it on the agenda, and then after the fact had found out that it wasn't really necessary anymore, but I was like, maybe I'll still ask the question generally, but there's no like dire need to get this sorted out. So
okay. Yeah, that'd be a tough one if the city doesn't have any files. Who's to say what transpired? And I think that's an intermittent stream that'd be in the buffer zone of. I don't think that's perennial. So we're just looking at buffer zone here, and things are. It's definitely a different question when we're talking about buffer zone versus actual resource areas.
mm-hmm.
Like a stream crossing, like a driveway crossing. So.
All right.
Okay, so next is the 35 Torrey Street forest cutting plan.
Yep. So this one also, I'm realizing maybe a bit premature because when I got it, I realized that it's not the official like approved cutting plan by the forester. It was the submission, and they sent it to us and to the forester simultaneously. So I just wanted to see if you guys had any comments. My main thing that I realized was that they were saying in their proposal that they wanted to start in June to do the cutting, and it was some of the trees are in the buffer zone / potentially in the resource area or in the resource area based on the plan. So my understanding is that it's better to do it in the wintertime when the ground is solid. When I talked to the applicant, or the not the property owner, but the guy who developed the plan, he was saying that he didn't think that it was likely that it would be consistently cold enough that the ground was hard enough to do it that way. And then he thought it might be better to try to bank on there being a drought, and it would be more reasonable to hope for that in super dry conditions to do the work under. And I was like, I guess I can float that by you guys to see if you have any comments about that. Otherwise, if anybody sees anything else questionable about the plan, we can get the comments to the forester before he approves it.
So I guess, forestry can be considered an exempt agricultural activity. It has to meet certain criteria set forth in the regs. Specifically, the forestry, the agricultural exemptions, including forestry, are under the definitions. So Cassie, if you want to maybe kind of extract that and share that with folks.
Okay.
And maybe provide a little context, like, is this the landowner, is this because it's, there are certain criteria when undertaking this work under an approved forest cutting plan versus just a landowner doing it for their own purposes versus for commercial purposes. So, good opportunity to kind of work through that part of the regulations, and it's not a huge part of the regulations, so that'd be great.
What this Conservation Commission, what's our purview for that work? Once DCR approves it, then it's okay?
As long as it meets the criteria in the regulations.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think, there's like a 10-day like comment period or something that the commission has or something. I can't remember what the amount of time is. Like once it's issued by the forester, we can still like say, oh, we don't like this or that, or.
Okay.
You might want to reach out to the district forester.
Okay, I'll check on that.
It looks like maybe half the property is wetlands, but.
Yeah, that they get, so one of the things could be that the cutting and removal of trees within bordering vegetated wetlands shall be limited to no more than 50% of the basal area of the area to be cut. And the work shall be conducted when the soil is frozen, dry, or otherwise stable to support the equipment used. So they can, under an approved forest cutting plan with limitations, cut trees in a wetland. But there are, like I said, there are limitations on that exemption.
Okay.
So it's, it just needs to be in accordance with these criteria.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Michael.
Okay, so if there's no other comments about that, I do have one more thing that wasn't on the agenda, unfortunately. Hopefully not too long.
Okay.
I received from Eversource 2 letters, both of them talking about doing more vegetation management for their right-of-ways. One of them is for just straight up a plan that they have, just notifying us that they're doing vegetation maintenance activities on WT 32, D2, and D70, which includes floor cutting, clearing of all incompatible woody vegetation to maintain the floor / easement right-of-way width, woody vegetation will be removed around all pole, tower structures, guide wires, gates, barriers, and all off-road access signs or access roads. And then also pruning and hazard tree removal if necessary. So yeah, this one's not necessarily like spraying. It's more about maintaining the size of the right of way. So I'll scan this and send it to everybody. But the other thing that I thought was interesting was that the other document that they sent was that their 5-year vegetation management plan is being posted, and there's a period for comment that I believe is until February 19th. Yeah, we have until February 19th to submit any comments we have about it. So I'll send this to you guys as well. But it's their 45-day yearly operational plan, public notice, review, and comment. 45-day yearly. That's ringing a bell for anybody. But I haven't had a chance to scan these in, and I'll send it to everyone, but I just wanted to put on your radar, I guess.
Point of clarification, I have a conflict of interest when it comes to Eversource, so I will recuse myself from all discussion of these matters.
Do I or no?
Less direct, but you do as well, to be conservative about it. If you want to seek a second opinion, be my guest.
I don't care.
Does that mean that I can't, like when I scan these, I'll just email them to everybody. Can I not email them to you guys, or?
I would prefer you just omit my name from that email entirely,
Cool.
just as a, being super conservative about the whole thing.
Sure.
That would be fine by me. I did not have a role in that particular set of documents, but that doesn't alleviate the whole conflict of interest.
Cool. I can
Thank
do
you
that.
for asking. With that, is there any other unanticipated information? Or is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
All those in favor? Roll call vote. Whittemore,
Aye.
Ryan,
Aye.
Buttrick,
Aye.
Busa,
Aye.
August.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank
Yes.
you all.
Have a nice night.
Thank you.
Good
Good
night,
night,
everybody.
everyone. Thank you.
Well, I'll be the same. Good night.